I wouldn't be too dissuaded for when they say, you may need 1 or 2 years of experience. I would apply anyway. And, you can say this summer internship, whatever I think qualifies me, or sometimes they'll just like you and they'll hire you. I do a good amount of our recruitment and our hiring and do interviews for the people we hire, and some of those things don't actually matter. So I would still go ahead and shoot your resume, what do you have to lose? And then, I would also just call up your alumni network and things like that, because some people have jobs that they're not posting and entry-level things, and they're taking on, first-year people, or that you can kind of get into that way. And I think that's a good option because, other things that are posted on Idealist get thousands of applications. Our fellowship program gets, thousands of applications. And, the more you can use the context you have, the, leg up it gives you, because they know you, and that can kind of subvert the 1 or 2 years that they want because they think you're really great.
And so I'd say, adding to that, sometimes, if they look at you and they think you're an attractive candidate, they'll keep you in the back of their mind for when a job does open up that they think that you're a good fit. I have a lot of friends where that's happened. I guess the other thing that comes to mind is that although it's a little bit of a blind jump, I know a lot of people who have come to DC and sort of started on the unpaid internship track, or on the the intern in a congressional office track, and I would say within a year, almost universally, they've ended up in a place where they've been happy with. Now, for that year, there's sort of a lot of indecision, and there's a financial resources question as well. But I think that DC is not that big of a town. People know people, and it's a lot easier to find a job when you have sort of that kind of a personal recommendation on your behalf.
Can you do policy anywhere other than Washington, D.C.?
Yeah,
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I did my first 2 years in Boston.
And you were in Indiana, right, Alissa?
I was in Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
You can do it anywhere. I mean, especially if you're in the state capital too, you can do it at a much bigger level, but you can really do it anywhere.
Right.
But I want to make a little suggestion that might sound kind of funky about the whole job thing for seniors. So one of the things that happened to me is I got to do election observation in Nigeria, and the first time I did it, I got it through this wacky, I was writing a paper on something completely different, and I called this guy because he had been mentioned in some congressional testimony, and I was like, okay, well, you're not the guy who gave the testimony, but I know you're the guy who wrote it, because they thanked you profusely in the beginning. And I called him, and we had this great conversation, and later on we were talking, like years later, 2 years later, I think, and he was the country director for NDI in Nigeria. And I was like, hey, I'd really love to come for the elections. And he was like, oh, really? And so we started talking about that. But I wouldn't have had that in unless I had made that contact. And I know sometimes people, you definitely want to shake that Amherst tree. I've had people call me, and I'm always happy to talk to folks. But if you're trying to make some contacts in a certain sector, and you're like, I don't really want to do the cold calls, write your papers, right? You already have to write these papers, and it's January. So you select papers on things that you want to work on when you're done. And when you're writing those papers, you call people, or you contact people who are really fabulous in this field. And you ask them really smart questions, because you've done your pre-research for the interview. And they find out that you are a really interested person who isn't just some kind of fly-by-night. You're like writing papers on it. Maybe your major is on this, this particular topic, or your thesis, whatever, or even if you aren't writing a thesis. And they have a context for you that is pretty cool. It's as someone who knows their stuff and knew enough to contact them as well. And then later on, maybe it's April or March, and you're talking, and if you're still looking for a job, you're talking to them about, hey, it was really great to talk to you, and I'm really trying to pursue this for my career. And I was just, wondering if you had any suggestions. And, that's the time when people who are, going into grad school, maybe they have an entry-level job and they're leaving, and they need to replace those people. And like I think Piper was saying, most jobs aren't really listed. You've got to work those contacts, and writing papers and showing people that you really care about these topics can be a way to get some good contacts. Also, you're at Amherst. Amherst has money to bring speakers. If there's someone you think is absolutely amazing, you try to find out what department can bring them to be a speaker. And when they're there, you're the one who tours them around, you're the one who talks to them and welcomes them. And you're creating like a little bit of a bond there that you need to work later on.
There's a little different version of on-campus recruiting.
It's like a backwards recruitment.
Yeah.
And they'll also have contacts that they'll be like, oh yeah, this really great student said that I should come, and now we've been sort of chatting. You should talk to them because they're really interesting. Making these connections in a way that's deeper than just I called you up and we had a conversation. And that can be fine too, but if you have the time to do it, I would say try these things because it really does get you on people's radar screens in a way that other ways might not.